everybody. Welcome to Cosmic Conference. We used to call the radio show we did Cosmic Conference. So I'm going to call that this. We're going to be talking today about the May 2024 astrology, the transits. I'm here with Mark Matheny. I'm Starlene. And we decided we'd go live this month to talk about it. So we hope that some of you guys get to catch us here. If not, we'd love to hear what you think in the comments as usual. And yeah. So how are you doing today, Mark?
I'm hanging in there. The Jupiter-Uranus conjunction's been super active in my chart.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I feel like we're kindred souls of a different kind because it is the same here, just in a different place. But you are definitely highlighted with that Jupiter Uranus aspect. I mean, you've got a lot going on in your chart with it. Yeah. So how's that feel? Like electricity times 12?
Oh, yeah, definitely. This one goes to 11. Absolutely.
11.
Yeah, it's nonstop bolts of electricity to my brain, like a bad Frankenstein off-Broadway thing.
Wow, that sounds almost terrifying. So, gosh, we have had an eventful April. So let's touch on a few things that have just recently passed in April, and then we'll go into May and discuss what has gone on with May. So in April, so just a recap, we did have the whole solar, well, we had two eclipses, but the solar eclipse, that was a big one. We did have that last month, early in the month, and then Mercury, of course, was retrograde the entire month. It just went station direct this morning, correct? So this morning is the 25th. Yeah, it did. So as that happened, we do have a couple days left in April because it is the 25th that we're talking here. We have also Mars conjunct Neptune, which comes up on the 29th. So do you have anything to mention about Mars and Neptune and the last bit of April that we are going to be facing?
Yeah, I mean, so Mars conjunct Neptune at the end of Pisces. I mean, that's good for, creativity and for like spiritual type things. But as far as clown world goes, I mean, I think it's just out and out gaslighting and misdirected anger. And if you look back through the last 4 years, there's a lot of misinformation released during like heavy Pisces placement things. So it's best to stay out of the circus, best to stay out of clown world during the Mars Neptune conjunction. Best to always stay out of clown world, but especially with a Mars Neptune conjunction in Pisces. And anything you see on the news for the next handful of days is just not going to be accurate. It's just going to be gaslighting from every side, not even just from one political party or something. It's just going to be complete gaslighting all the way around. So good few days to stay out of the news cycle and just let clown world do clown things on its own.
That's a good way to think about the Mars. Well, not a good way, but like a way that it can manifest, like you said, creativity. If you're not digging into the clown world, that might be a nice way to enter into it, to enjoy that energy. But, if you're wrapped up into watching the news and getting into things that might be just for nothing, I guess that's a good way to put it like that.
Manipulation purposes.
What's that?
Manipulation purposes.
Yeah, exactly. Manipulation purposes. I mean, and the mainstream media, that's all they do anyway. They're just feeding us what they want us to hear. I think most people know that by now, but maybe not. So, and then the last 2 days in April, we do have Venus going into Taurus, Mars going into Aries. That's the 29th for Venus into Taurus at 7:31 a.m. and Mars into Aries on the 30th at 11:33 a.m. So this will be a shift in the energies. Personal planets moving signs, so it does shift the energy quite a bit. Venus rules Taurus, Mars rules Aries too. So they're the planets, if you will, are happy in those signs. But yeah, I mean, Venus and Taurus seems like a little bit of a sigh of relief, because when Venus is in Aries, it seems like it's a little bit more intense, a little bit more of a challenge for some of us, because Aries can that archetypally the god of war. So the energy of what your love and desires and wishes are, your Venus being in the energy of Aries for what was it, about like 3 weeks or so. It's not the easiest feeling, but it's like a sigh of relief. So that's a good thing. Mars and Aries, though, on the other hand, it's not that it's bad. It's just that it's like you're going to hit the ground running quickly.
I think Mars and so Venus and Taurus is a fantastic food transit.
Yes.
So so you should eat good food with Venus and Taurus, because Venus and Taurus is a good food transit. Yeah, Mars and Aries is just gasoline being poured on every single thing that, I mean, luckily Mercury is like direct, so at least maybe that'll eliminate some of the issues. But yeah, Mars and Aries is just I promise you there's going to be a noticeable energy difference with when's Mars enters Aries on April 30th at 11:33 a.m. I promise you're going to feel this one. Everything is going to go from 0 to 100 miles per hour.
Yeah, like Mars is already directed at our energy, moving into Aries, the first sign of the zodiac. I always think that I mean, everything's by design, but I always think the first sign of the zodiac, of course, they're going to hit the ground running, take off like kind of brazenly and not afraid, march to the beat of your own drum. I mean, I think that's, that makes sense, but it's not always easy, especially for one of the laid back people. It's a little bit more challenging. Oh, hold on. Maybe this will be easier to hear me if I put my mic in front of me. Sorry if you couldn't hear me. Now you can, hopefully. Is that better? Can you hear me okay?
I could hear you before, but it sounds better now.
Yeah, testing 1, 2, 3. We did a great job of setting up.
You had a bit of an echo beforehand.
Well, there you go. Oh my goodness, so funny.
Gracious.
Yeah. So I mean, Aries is what Aries is, right? Yeah. We move on to, well, like you said, thank God Mercury is now direct. We're no longer having to deal with that, but it is stationed for at least another day or two, right? Till it moves a degree or so away.
Yeah.
Is that consider stations like a degree in the same degree it's did the retrograde or other way around?
Yeah. So I don't find a lot of total value to the like the shadow periods and stuff. When
Same.
When a planet stations, that influence is much heavier for a week to 10 days on either side. But I find that when Mercury goes direct, things usually fix themselves fairly quickly. I don't. We have 3 weeks of the shadow period. I think for me, things have always straightened up pretty quickly.
Yeah, and Mercury especially, because Mercury is the quickest moving planet. So I agree with you on that one. But the station period, like a couple days at least, like you said. So there's that, just things do shift. yeah, I my phone decided to not charge correctly the last couple of days. I know I'm gonna have to get a new one because, you know, at that point, but I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna make it work
Yeah.
until until I like have to get, you know, like a week away from this. So because I bought this phone during a Mercury retrograde in September, I think it was. But yeah, I'm like, this phone isn't gonna last me. And ta-da, here we are.
Yeah. I made the cell phone I have now, I made the mistake. I totally zoned out and I bought it during a moon void course period. And it's just been 2 years of problems. I like do not buy a cell phone when the moon is void of course or
I didn't
Mercury
even think about that.
retrograde.
Yeah, I had no choice when I bought it because it was, but you know, and sometimes you don't have choice, but I'm like, I have a tablet, so I use that for everything except for phone calls. And then I could even use my tablet. You know, I was like, I'm going to make this work because, you know, whatever. I just don't want to keep going through the repeated cycle. One time I did that with a phone and bought it during Mercury retrograde. And I had 3 phones that did not continue to work after that. Like they were just like returning them. One didn't ring, one didn't. It was a mess. So yeah, those kinds of things that you try to be aware of, but sometimes you can't help it. So yeah, so Mercury station retrograde, station direct, which is a good thing. And then we move on into, you know what? I actually copied April twice, so I don't have any of the May aspects. Let me go and look for them.
Okay. I'll fill for a second.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, so you know that would be a good topic for a show of itself. It'd probably be like a 27-hour show, but like how to mediate like issues like if Uranus is transiting your 4th house and you have to move and stuff like that. Like I think it was my sister who had Uranus going through her 4th, and she like everywhere she moved, she had plumbing issues and pipes break and things like that. So it's like I think maybe good strategies for when you have to do something under bad astrological influences. I think that would be a maybe an interesting topic.
It would be an interesting topic because we all have to live. We can't just like stop living. Although I am a determined human, I would probably have figured out how to live without a phone if I had to.
Right.
I would have, you know, but we do have to still live. We can't not, you know, we can choose certain things that we do if we're going to get married or start a business. That's a different story. But if we're just living our life and we have no choice, but that would be a great topic to talk about. So yeah. So here we go. May 1st. May 1st is Venus squaring Pluto. That happens at 2 Aquarius at in the middle of the night, 12:29 a.m. And if you're listening from a different time zone, we are talking about Eastern time zone. So you just have to do the math on that one. Venus square Pluto. Just before Pluto goes retrograde too. So what are we feeling about that?
Right. So again, since it's Venus is the innermost planet there, so Venus can only suggest things to Pluto. So Venus Pluto square is usually a reevaluation of your supply chain and like what's important to you, and you know you may find your values changing, or Venus square Pluto is shifting priorities. How about that? To put it into one sentence.
Shifting priorities. That's an interesting way to look at it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because the priorities are you know what you're caring about, what you are connected to, the Venus energy, and then Pluto. I mean, I always think of just that obsessive compulsive drive of Pluto, you know. So I always, I don't know. It's just, but it has something sincere to it too, you know. It wants to at least. So Yeah. And then we have on the 2nd, Pluto goes station retrograde to Aquarius as well. So, and then we have our little trip of Pluto until, when does it stay retrograde till? Do you know the end date of that? Because I don't have it.
All I have in my brain is the
I'll look and tell us.
The Capricorn period. So it goes direct on October 11th is when Pluto goes direct. This is down the road, but I will just warn everyone that September 2nd through November 18th, Pluto is at 29 Capricorn again. We have a 2.5 month period in the fall of Pluto back at 29 Capricorn. And so,
really not looking forward to that.
my prediction is no one's going to like that. I will stand on that prediction. No one's going to enjoy that.
I especially do not like it, but yes, that's true. And then in December, Pluto ends up moving into back into the sign of Aquarius. Where it will remain for a very long time. I'm looking forward to it leaving Aquarius, but I guess I have to wait on that one.
Yeah.
So what?
The fall's a mess. We'll stay in May for now.
We'll stay in May for now, but yeah, the fall is definitely messy. But yes, April was also messy too. So
April was messy also.
You know, what I was looking at, it's interesting because we actually have, like a day that is, or a couple days where all the planets and even the nodes are direct. Actually, no, it's a few days. We have from today when Mercury went direct. Well, actually, I don't know if the nodes are. The nodes are not. Oh, yeah, they are. What am I saying? So yeah, they're direct, and then until Pluto goes retrograde, all the planets are actually direct. That doesn't happen very often. Do you want to speak on that a little bit? Is there something that you have in your mind about what that would mean with all the planets direct at one time?
Yeah, I know we had a period earlier in the year from.
Oh, in January? It's very possible, yeah.
January 27th through March 31st. We had 2 months of everything direct. But yeah, that it's not very common. If you get a couple months a year, that's usually about it.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a loosening of the restraints, so to speak, of things we have to navigate around. This period is really short with Pluto.
Mm-hmm.
This is less than a week, really.
Right. It is. It's less than a week. But is there anything that you like notice a difference of, at least anecdotally, when all the planets are direct, or is that maybe just not something you really paid attention to?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a good time to push through on things. I mean, Mercury's still moving really slow through this week of everything direct. Yeah, I mean, I think really it's with the Mars net. So this one is this week period is an outlier because there's a Mars Neptune conjunction in Pisces, and Pluto's slowing down to station. Mercury hasn't been. I'd say this period is kind of wiped out, really, just because you got Mars and Neptune and Pisces, and then a Pluto station, and Mercury's not even really moving yet.
Yeah.
So normally I would say like it's a good time to really push through on as many things as possible, as quickly as possible. I'd say this one being only a week and so many other tricky things that it's like, and that Jupiter Uranus conjunction is still in full effect. So like right now, like I'm trying to just like focus on how I can improve my immediate surroundings, my immediate area, and not worry about clown world as much. So because now is a really good time. There's kind of a hard stop to this year, like, and it's like August 30th. Like August 30th through the rest of the year is going to be very tricky and very unstable, probably very chaotic. Right, like after we get a few days past the Pluto station on the, so like once you get to like May 8th or 9th, like once we're like a week past the Pluto station, up until August like 30th, which is a Uranus station, and then Pluto retrograding back into Capricorn. That's your sweet spot for this year, is like say May 7th through August 30th. That's your time to get everything else that you want to get done for this year done. Because navigation is going to be difficult in more ways than one once we get to like August 30th.
So I don't want to hop ahead, but what is August 30th that is like making you say that? What's the
So there's a Uranus station, and then like 3 days after that, Pluto, which is retrograde, re-enters Capricorn at 29 degrees. So those two are on top of each other. And I think there's a third thing.
Yeah, I mean, and they're all at late degrees. So Taurus, Pisces, and Aquarius. So they're all actually Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune and Pluto, 27, 29, and 0. So they're all, at that time, they're all really close to the end degrees, and they're all aspecting each other. So
and they're all retrograde.
And they're all retrograde when you could integrate when the beginning of September. So yeah, I know. It feels like it's a that makes sense. It's a hard stop. Why you would say it's a hard stop. Yes. Not during that time.
Not as hard as the 2020 hard stop, but it's still a hard stop.
Yeah. Yeah. So
and we're already seeing what some of it's going to be. We'll do that. We'll do that as we get closer.
Yes, we will definitely talk about it as we get closer to those times too. So when we move on to the 3rd of May, we have Mars sextile Pluto, Mars in Aries, of course, and Pluto in Aquarius. So that happens at 2 degrees Aquarius and Aries at 5:06 a.m. I'm going to predict that will be a day. What day is the 3rd? That will be a day that everybody kind of gets out of bed quickly or early. That's next Friday. So
that's next Friday.
Yeah, I think that will be a busy day, or a day that you might even be like a little frustrated. Mars and Pluto could be frustration. It could be it's a sextile, so it might not be like as if it was a square. A square could be more intense frustration or even violence. But the sextile might make it a little bit easier to handle, but there will be a lot of energy to get yourself going. I would say next weekend, so not this weekend, but next weekend when this happens on the Friday morning, to set yourself up for what you're going to do and channel the energy in a way that's healthy, so you don't get like wrapped up in something that isn't healthy and you're frustrated.
Yeah, and that's Yeah, that's let's see. That's less than 24 hours after the Pluto station too. So like
Yeah, good point.
the energy level is probably going to be intense. That Mars Pluto sextile will probably be good to get things moving. And also, I want to point out, I don't have a time for this, but sometime on May 3rd, Neptune's going to hit 29 degrees of Pisces. And we've not had that since it was the late 1860s is the last time Neptune has been at 29 degrees of Pisces. So no one alive now has ever lived through Neptune being at 29 Pisces. So that's really going to be the oddity level is going to take a big jump up.
Yeah. Neptune. And when we think about the zodiac, the 29 degrees Pisces is the last degree of the whole zodiac before it moves into Aries. So it's an accumulation, if you will, of the energies of everything that came before it and before it breaks into the new. So if that looks to be at 11:26 a.m., that's what my clock is telling me, by the way, when it goes into 29 degrees of Pisces. So yeah, there's an intensity with that. I mean, I don't know if intensity is the right word to use with with Neptune. A feeling of maybe, and the intensity is of having a dream or an ideal, but not necessarily knowing how to direct it in a certain way. What would you say that, maybe I should ask this question. Did you look at what was going on in the 1860s when Neptune was last in Pisces?
It was a civil war.
Oh, hey, you're right. There was. That's terrifying. And you know what? It wasn't. No, that's not true. What was Pluto doing then, too? Something was going on with Pluto. I don't know.
Pluto was. I can fill for 2 seconds, and I can.
That's okay. Yeah, Pluto was in the beginning of Virgo. In April of 1860. So, yeah, interesting.
I'm going to jump to.
Oh, that's 1960. My bad. I'm mistaken. I can't. I can't math correctly currently. Yeah, so it's
Pluto,
right there.
Pluto was in Taurus.
Very beginning of Taurus.
Hold on. I need to go back a year. Let's see. Oh my goodness. Okay, I think I need to go back to 1861. I think is what I need to do. Okay, there we go. Yeah. 1861. Well, and then it went back. Let's see, 1860. So 1861 for part of the year, Neptune was at 29 Pisces. 1862, we had Neptune at 29 Pisces for part of that year also. And Pluto was at the 8 degrees of Taurus is where Pluto was for most of that time. And then also, strangely enough, we had Uranus and Gemini, which we're going to get next year. Uranus will leave Taurus and enter Gemini. So
that's interesting too. If you look at the planets, I'm looking at April 1861. If you look at the planets, Uranus and Gemini is at 9 degrees, and then Pluto's in Taurus at 8 degrees, and then Neptune just moved into Aries. So it's at 0 degrees, but they're lining up again, each semi-sextile to each other, right? So there's, all 3 of them. And that's what they're doing now. That's what
Yes.
they're doing now. They're just in different signs, but they're all semi-sextiling each other and sextiling each other. So there's this, I noticed when there's patterns like that, when you have multiple planets making aspects to each other, they're hard or soft, that makes it even more intense. I mean, that's a VA thing, but I think most people would say that as well. But that makes the intensity of the planets themselves more. So are you predicting civil war? Just
Well,
I shouldn't kid about that, but
I mean, I think we're already in one.
kind of like in that, yeah, already. Yeah.
I think we've been in one for a couple. It's not an outwardly fighting thing, but I think there's definite division.
Yeah.
Everywhere, and I mean, we're on the, you could possibly put forth, I mean, that we're, kind of on the brink of World War III at this point. I mean, we've got three different, theaters of operation happening with, Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. So, and with Mars entering Aries in less than a week, it will not take much to set things off. Not to mention the things we have going on in our own country too. It's so the Civil War started April 12th, 1861, with a Mars-Uranus conjunction in Gemini, Neptune conjunct Mercury in Pisces, Neptune at 2958 Pisces when the Civil War started, and Pluto conjunct the moon in Taurus, forming a trine to Saturn. So not all the same planets at the exact same place, but some similar lineups.
Yeah. It's when these planets, these outer planets, make these aspects that gives rise to a shift in the culture, in the world. I mean, I think more than, the inner planets obviously have something to do with the energies of the moment, but the outer planets, they bring about a shift of change. That's not always fun or easy, especially when you're talking about Uranus. Uranus has that disturbing element to it. Pluto has that compulsive drive that's not always rational. It's sometimes more, like goes on the impulsiveness, not impulsiveness like Uranus is impulsive and, such, but it's more like the drive, the impulsiveness of the person, the idea of like, this is what I'm feeling, as opposed to this is what's the best move. So, yeah, I think that is definitely something to think about. And, how you personally move in the world when things are struggling for you. I think we can all help a little bit by the way that we communicate with each other, and hopefully treat each other a little bit more gently, because if you're not going through it, it is possible that someone else is dealing with something along these transits that are really affecting them. When we move on in the month, we move on. We did Mars sextile Pluto, and then on the 7th, we have the Sun sextiling Saturn in Taurus and Pisces. The Sun's in Taurus, Saturn's in Pisces. This is at 1:42 a.m. So, what are you feeling about the Sun sextile Saturn?
Yeah. So I mean, the sextiles are probably the easiest transit to get beneficial stuff out of, because it's probably not, sextile is probably not as powerful as a trine, but those trines are really easy to just like, you feel good for a little bit and you kind of let those slip through your fingers. The sextiles are kind of, you can really get good benefit out of those.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's, a sextile is a harmonious aspect, but it's not like soap. I mean, sometimes I found this out through doing predictions and stuff, is like sometimes like you'd think like a Jupiter conjunct something is going to be awesome, and like sometimes like it's too much energy. It's too much. So you have to wait till that tones down a little bit to actually get the benefit of it. Sometimes my stupid analogy is like it's trying to cram a watermelon down the garbage disposal. It's too much energy at once. So sometimes you're doing more stuff to put out fires. Then you have to kind of assimilate that energy a little bit, like we were talking beforehand about the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. So it's hitting like extremely hard in my chart, and for everyone born in the 1965 to 68 area, this is a once in a lifetime transit that you're going to get. You're never going to get this one again. Also, people born in I forget what it was, 1993 or something like that. We'll say 1992 to 1994 have the Uranus-Neptune conjunction around the 20ish degree area of Capricorn. So you're also getting the trine from this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. So those people, and then if you have any inner planets in the Earth signs, then you've really got a thing, a serious transit going on. I did want to point out too something else. The last time Uranus was in Taurus was when World War II was starting, and it was forming a grand trine with Mars and Neptune all in Earth signs. So that was kind of another indicator. All the headlines we're seeing right now is different wars that are going on and our involvement in them.
Yeah.
So,
and
I think there's a miscommunication out there on. I keep seeing people saying World War II started in 1941, but I think that was the U.S. involved. Like World War II started on September 1st, 1939. That's when it started. The United States was just slow to the
get
show
involved,
there. Yeah. Wasn't until like Pearl Harbor and stuff that we really got involved. It had been going on for 2 years really before we got ourselves involved there. I'll leave it
the research we've done in vibrational astrology shows that the trines, especially grand trines, they aren't as fluffy and nice as we would think, because you kind of get spun out of control if you're not directing your energy in the right way, or if it's the right planets, especially if you're having a planet being part of that, grand trine. It just feels like it's like almost a too good off kilter kind of feeling, and it can be that way. I know that in the research that David Cochran did for the book of bipolar, that was one of the markers, is the trines. So trines and sextiles can be difficult as well. It's just how, in which way, so I agree with you on that one. The trines, they can slip through your fingers if it's not something you're focused on, and it's, but when you get a grand trine in there, I think that can be a force of energy, especially depending on the planet.
Yeah, because I have a gigantic water grand trine in my chart, and it can be a struggle sometimes to stay focused on certain things. Mm-hmm. Now I have Saturn conjunct my sun too, so that's a big helper on. It's something, I have the workaholic side also. So I think that helps us out. But I can see if I did not have Saturn conjunct my sun, I can see where the various rabbit holes would be issues.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like it's too much. So yeah, that can definitely be a difficult part to it. So let's see, where were we at? Okay, so on the 13th, we actually have two aspects going on. We have Sun conjunct Uranus in 23 Taurus. I'm so not excited about that because that's my ascendant. Venus, I don't know. Sun conjunct Uranus on my ascendant. I don't know if I'm excited about that or not. That seems like it's too much for me. Venus sextile Saturn at 3:45 p.m. The first one's at 5:13 a.m. and Venus sextile Saturn is at 17 Taurus Pisces. So, what are you feeling for the 13th?
Yeah. So to me, that's so. So here's right when there's a Uranus transit like that, or something transiting Uranus, I know that I'm going to be up early that day. The dogs are going to get us up early, or something. So I'm usually like I'm awakened when there's. So you can map out pretty quickly, like the best times to sleep and whatnot, and like when you're going to get woken up early, or when you're going to, you can map all that out by the transits to the, from the inner planets to the outer planets during the normal sleep time. You can see where there's disturbances, heavy dream activity, bad dreams. You can see when you're going to need to sleep longer. You can see all this stuff when you sit and play with it a little bit. So to me on the 13th, again, depending on what time zone you're in, I know that I'm probably going to be awakened at 5:13 in the morning, or pretty close to it on that day. So
Yeah.
I'd say that's a rough start to the day. And then the Venus sextile Saturn is like, as you get later on in the afternoon, things maybe settle down a little bit, but obviously, the sun's going to be conjunct Uranus for, it's going to be several days, and it's conjunct.
Yeah.
That's the exact of it. So, you get the Uranus stuff, disruptions to plans, change of plans, things that, get you out of the box.
Yeah. And that Sun conjunct Uranus will be a day or two before, depending on what kind of orb you want to use, but you'll start feeling it. Just the pinnacle of it will be the 13th in the morning. And you're right. When I was writing daily horoscopes, I always looked at the moon, and I knew when the moon was like aspecting Uranus, I was like 1:00 in the morning. I'm not sleeping. Like, just stay up and do something productive, because otherwise you're just going to flip flop in bed all day, all night, So I always kind of worked my way towards that. And I know that's anecdotal, but I mean, it really does work to understand, or when I wouldn't really pay attention to that, I kind of got out of the habit of doing the extra fall in and out of those kinds of things. I would be up, look at it, and it's like, oh, well, okay, this aspect is going on. No wonder I'm actually just not able to sleep, So I agree with what you said. You can really kind of map out your good nights and your more challenging nights just by looking at Uranus specifically. And yeah, Pluto might be a little bit more difficult too, in terms of dreaming and things like that, or feeling like there's a feeling of something that you need to go do, and that's why you're not resting. So yeah.
So it's just without going down a 7-year rabbit hole. So like tonight's a good example of that. So like on Eastern time, the moon goes void of course at 7:17 tonight. Then it enters Sagittarius at 9:37 tonight. So there's a 2-hour and 20-minute moon void period tonight. So I know what I always have a list of 8,000 things I want to work on. I know that after 7:17 tonight, like my energy is going to start waning. I'm not going to be done. I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to bed at 7:17 tonight. But I know that my energy and my focus is going to wane after that.
Yeah.
So I need to, adjust my schedule to whatever I'm going to try and get done today. I want to be where like I have most of my stuff done, or everything that needs done today done by 7:17 p.m.
As early as possible. Yeah.
Right. Because I know that like when the moon goes void, there's like a pretty quick drop off period of the energy.
Yeah. How long is it void for?
So at 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
we got 9:37. The moon enters Sag tonight, which is usually a much more antsy energy than Scorpio.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Scorpio moon can be a little bit more intense. And I mean, it definitely is. So that's a good point too, because the void of course moons, especially if they're really long ones, they can be like, what is going on? It just feels like things are not moving, and you might be wanting to, but you're spinning your wheels. If you're paying attention to void
right.
of course moons and they're affecting you, it's good to kind of like, hey, maybe it's time for me to just, go meditate, take a break, whatever, But yeah,
Right.
that's for sure.
Especially we've had some with all the outer planets lined up, we've had some like crazy long moon void of courses this year. Like normally like a couple hours is normal, or
Yeah.
but we had a 32-hour moon void of course period earlier this year. So that's a
Oh wow.
day and 8 hours where the moon was
Yeah,
void.
that's a long time.
So like I try to avoid doing overly important things during those periods and just work on like I don't have to have great transits to cut the grass or something. I mean that you can do under any you know
I'll be cutting the grass at 7 p.m. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, right.
That's funny. But that's a good point. Do something that doesn't necessarily require a ton of, your mental mind to be focused on something. Yeah. So we are moving on to the 15th. The 15th, we have Mercury entering into the sign of Taurus at 1:05 p.m. So Mercury is moving on at that point. I know you think about Taurus as a stop, but what are you thinking about Mercury in Taurus? What's that going to bring us?
Yeah, so to me the two most dramatic entrances, exits of the zodiac is when things like leave or enter Aquarius, or leave or enter Aries. Because to me, like probably like Aries and Aquarius are probably the two most electric signs, especially compared to the ones on either side of them. So when something leaves Aries and enters Taurus, it's to me that's a slamming on the brakes of things. That's a slow down and catch up and finish the 8,243,316 things you started when Mercury was in Aries that you didn't finish. So then it's like you kind of, like Mercury in Aries is grabbing a handful of darts and throwing them all at the wall, and you see which ones stick. Then you come back with Mercury and Taurus and you look at the things that stuck and then further develop those.
That's a good thought.
So that's
Yeah.
how I kind of play that is, get things started in the, when a planet is in Aries, then you come behind it when that planet enters Taurus and take stock or evaluation of what worked and what didn't, and then move forward with the things that you feel actually had a good
That's a good thing, because
sticking around.
That's a good way to think about it too, because Aries is very good at initiation, where you're initiating something, but not necessarily has the staying power to
not good at
follow
finishing.
through. Yes, but Taurus is the opposite, where it's like I'm gonna continue going through it and like more fine tooth comb thing and figure out, you know. So that's a really good point. I mean, and it's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at that point, we also have Sun, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and Uranus all in Taurus. So like five planets. Five planets, 1, 2. Yeah, so, 5 planets.
Yeah. So at that point, I mean, so Mercury's just entering Taurus, but Venus, Uranus, the Sun, and Jupiter are all between 20 and 27 degrees of Taurus. So you have a Venus, Uranus, Sun, Jupiter stellium in Taurus. And I'll revert back to the 1965 to 1968 people that and like the Sun is exact on the Uranus Jupiter midpoint, and Uranus is on the Sun Venus midpoint. So you've got so you've really got, and you know, and then Mercury is, you know, loosely square Pluto at that point too. Oh, there, never mind. That's the next thing coming up. I forgot that was on there. So yeah, so that's like a lot of, and two, you know, there's a Mars North Node conjunction at that point in Aries also. So that's really a lot of focused energy. And if and two, that gives us, you know, counting North Node and Chiron, that gives us 10 bodies between 17 Pisces and 27 Taurus. So that's 70 degrees of the zodiac. We have 10 planetary bodies within 70 degrees. So wherever middle Pisces through late Taurus is in your chart, that section of your chart is going to be heavily activated.
Lit up. Yep. Lit up.
And one thing I kind of added in last minute, I think I forgot to tell you, is that or I said not, but you know what? I started going over it, and I think I forgot what I was talking about. Mercury and Pisces, guilty. So starting on May 3rd, Neptune hits 29 Pisces. I think that's what threw us down the Civil War rabbit hole. But yeah, so things are just going to. I know I've posted this many times, and people say, "Well, things are already strange." Yeah, they are already strange. They're going to get stranger. The lines between, I did a class in March of 2011, I think, and I kind of went over all the stuff that Neptune and Pisces was going to bring. So like this is going to be the highlight of it, like May through March of 2026. Neptune is going to just be hovering between 27 Pisces and 1 Aries. It's just going to be moving back and forth over those few degrees. And so Neptune, you know, Neptune dissolves boundaries. Like you literally cannot hardly tell now if something is real or photoshopped or artificial intelligence created, or what, just the lines between what's real and what's not have kind of dissolved. And that's just going to intensify over the next year and a half.
Yeah.
Year and 10 months.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting to the point where even a video on YouTube, when you're uploading it and you're making it live and putting all the information in there, it asks you, and this is new, does this represent someone, I'm paraphrasing, but does this represent someone that you've changed the video to make it say something that they didn't say? Like they want to know if you're just trying to, you know,
Yeah.
I'm sure they have a way to tell, but you know, computer wise, but to our human eye, we can't see that. We cannot tell if I've seen those what do they call them, deep fakes that are so good that it was not Obama, but it was Obama, and he was just talking mad crazy stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, that's so good, I would never know. But they were making a point and saying like he was just talking stuff that you probably wouldn't hear him say.
Right.
It was, and then they showed the person. It was like a whole video about it. And I was like, oh, that is, and they had a person actually doing that, and they laid over like the skin or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the word is, over the person to look like Obama, and it was like didn't look like him at all. Nothing at all looked like him. But the sound of his voice, the mannerisms that he had, it was just, you know, it's so, you know, computer information like that is getting more and more harder to tell what is real and what's not. So that's an interesting point that you make. Yeah. So when we move on, did we just talk about Mercury square Pluto? I don't know if we did. Mercury square Pluto on the 17th. Yeah, no, we didn't talk about that yet. That happens on May 17th. And that's, of course, Mercury's Taurus and Pluto is in Aquarius for forever and a day left. Oh my gosh. So Mercury squaring Pluto might be what? Communications difficult?
Yeah. So Mercury square Pluto is or Mercury square Uranus also would fit this, is usually like traffic is really bad, like moving around is difficult. You know, you run into construction accidents, things like that if you're out and about. But yeah, Mercury square Pluto is usually like, you know, surprise announcements or, you know, power struggles.
Yeah, power struggles.
Yeah, communications that challenge the status quo or the, you know, people in charge. Pluto's like the power structure of things also. So yeah, so Mercury square Pluto can be disruptions in power.
Yeah.
Also. Power supply, power. Can't think of the word. Yeah, the power supply. So
that makes sense, though. I mean, yeah. And that's a building energy. Pluto is just I don't know. I'm not in love with Pluto.
Yeah. No.
Not lately. I'm just like, can these outer planets leave me alone?
Yeah. No, I think we're we're both in for the long haul here. Is the next 2 years are going to be chippy.
They're going to be exciting transformations.
Yeah. Had enough of that.
I don't know. I can't be that Pollyanna. I have to be realistic with myself.
Right.
I would like to be, but yeah, that's not really me.
No, I don't fit that either.
When we move on to the 18th, we have Venus conjunct Uranus at 23 Taurus. Yay! Sun conjunct Jupiter at 28 Taurus. So they're even really kind of conjunct. They're like 5 degrees depending on your orb for conjunction. So, oh my gosh, that's a big day. I mean, that might be, if you can handle the energy, that might be a fun day to do something. Venus, Uranus, Sun, Jupiter, but it might be also a little bit intense. What I would suggest not getting into an intense relationship at that point.
Right.
You know, that Venus Uranus energy is always like it could be fun, but it doesn't stay. You know what I mean? So what are you thinking about the 18th?
Yeah, I mean that's so. Yeah, so this is all remnants of the Venus Uranus Sun Jupiter stellium that's going on the whole middle part of the month. I mean, again, Venus conjunct Uranus is not that different from the, you know, the Sun conjunct Uranus and Taurus and the Mercury square Pluto and everything. That's just a, again, Venus is resources and values. Uranus is surprise events. Like Venus conjunct Uranus can be, I'm sure people that like win the lottery and stuff like that probably
You could
have.
be really lucky.
Right. So you can make with this energy we have now, you can make big sudden gains. You can. You just have to, because Jupiter's in this mix also, so you have to be careful of not making too big of projections, or not taking too big of risks, but like some calculated risks. And this is where that kind of stuff could pay off. You don't want to take $500 and buy lottery tickets, but whatever your thing is. This is probably, if 20 to 27 degrees of Taurus hits good in your chart, then that's an area where you can make some big, increases in a short time. Just don't overextend yourself, which is the Jupiter danger there, is being too optimistic. Just you got to that Uranus is involved in there also in this Taurus lineup.
Yeah, Uranus and Jupiter can be too much of a good thing if you're, and especially the Venus there. I might buy lottery tickets. I never do that, but that's happening right on my ascendant. Maybe I'll get fortunate.
Yeah. So I think sometimes, like when I do readings, I think sometimes people want me to give them an exact
the lottery numbers
to happen type of thing, and it's like I don't really do that.
It doesn't work that way.
Right. Like you have to put if you have a great Venus transit, you have to go out and places where you can meet people. You're not going to have like the FedEx guy come knock at your door or whatever. You've got to put the effort out there, but it's like I try to give people the most opportune times where they're going to get the best value for their effort.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, maybe if I win the lottery, I'm not telling anybody, but you'll know. There will be signs. There will be a million more cats around me. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'll be like, I bought a cattery. What?
Yes.
So when we move on to the 19th, we have Sun sextile Neptune, and that's in Taurus Pisces at 29 Taurus Pisces. So Sun, Neptune, 29 Taurus Pisces. Fun stuff. What do you think? What are you thinking about that? Because, the Neptune at 29 Pisces, you spoke about that a little bit already, but throwing in the Sun, making a sextile there.
Sun sextile Neptune at 29 degrees is, that's spiritual insights to me. That's spiritually figuring something out, or intuitively figuring something out. That's the Sun is aspecting your subconscious and bringing something out into the light. That's Neptune's all the hidden 12th house secretive stuff, and the Sun making a good aspect to that is taking something that's been sitting in your brain and bringing it out into the daylight to share with others, or to beat others over the head with it, whatever.
That's funny. Yeah. What was that?
I said whatever floats your boat there, or whatever sinks your boat. Maybe that's a better phrase.
Yeah, and maybe there's a creative aspect to that. If you're a creative person, that might be a time to be creative. Do something, yeah, fun. I think it just amplifies what Mark said in the beginning of the video, talking about the Neptune at 29 Pisces. So the sextile with the sun does that. I missed this one on the 19th. There's also Mars conjunct North Node at 14 Aries. So that's going on. And what is Mars at the North Node to you? Mars conjunct the North Node.
Yeah. So this is Aries. So North Node is future, and Mars is in Aries. So that is definitely a very warrior-like energy. So that's certainly a time where, you know, some kind of global conflict could
arise.
Go up. Yes, could go up, could further the level where it's already at. There's like Mars conjunct North Node in Aries. Like there's patience is just going to be a rumor at that point. I don't, because you can really see the nodes, planets aspecting the nodes. You can really see that play out in the collective. You really, you know, when there's a planet square the nodes or conjunct the nodes, you can really see that energy kind of, you know, dominating the news cycle and the environment you're in at that point. So
yeah.
So stay out of arguments that are going to go nowhere, that don't have, you know, arguments that don't have a purpose. Don't argue just to be arguing at that point, because with the North Node in Aries, that means the South Node is in detriment. That means the South Node is in Libra, and you know, Libra is balance and harmony. So that the Mars is opposite that. Mars is conjunct the North Node in Aries. So that's where the flavor of things are going to be, is ready to go off on a dime. So
fun stuff.
Yes, stay out of arguments at that point. Unless it's something that you really, you know, if it's something that you need to fight back on and it's something, you know, of relevance, then that's your time period. That's your time to do it.
You'll have the force behind you to facilitate that.
Yes.
When you think about the node and nodes in transit, so I know they're a big deal in evolutionary astrology, looking at the natal chart and such. But the nodes in transit, like, how would you interpret them differently? Because I think when you think about evolutionary astrology, the nodes are the evolution of the person, right? Is that right? It's kind of a quick way to say it.
Yeah. Like in someone's birth chart, like you almost always want to exhibit the energy of your North Node. Now, kind of like when you're looking at, I think world transits is the phrase that I probably like best. When you're looking at like the transits out there with, like, you know, when Mars is conjunct the North Node, like it's going to be there, that's people are going to feel warlike. That's just how it's going to be.
Yeah, especially given because it's in Aries too, so that adds another level of the war like to it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So interesting. All right. So when we move on to the 20th, we have the sun moving into Gemini. So that would make it also trine Pluto, which happens on the 22nd. So the 20th is the sun entering into Gemini, 8:59 a.m. And then I'll just talk about this one too, is the sun trine Pluto at 11:13 a.m. And that happens at Gemini Aquarius. So we're getting a little bit of a spotlight lit onto our Pluto. Again, of course, that always happens as the planets travel around the zodiac. But what are you feeling about this sun moving into Gemini, number one, and number two, the sun trining Pluto?
Yeah, so I find it interesting. Like Taurus is in between Aries and Gemini. So like
Right.
if you follow the zodiac around, there's kind of a story.
Yeah.
Like so like Aries is the new, like 0 degrees Aries is the newborn, the birth, the starting of something new, and you run around and start 80 different things. And then Taurus kind of solidifies the things that work. And then the things go into Gemini after Taurus. And so Gemini picks uh, the slow Taurus speed. Gemini picks that speed back up closer to the Aries, not quite, but closer to the Aries level. Because Gemini is about gathering lots of facts and figures. And that's kind of where, when you follow the zodiac signs around, there's a masculine sign, then a feminine one, then a masculine, then a feminine. And it goes, earth, air, fire, water, earth, air, fire, water, earth. There's a pattern to them. So you have periods of introspection followed by a period of outgoingness. And then there's
Extroversion.
introspection to look over the period of extroversion. Then you introvert to process those things, and then once you sort those out, then you get extrovert again, then you introvert, and it goes back and forth to where you have periods of conquer and then assimilate, conquer and then assimilate, and it goes back and forth with these things, so that you're not, it would be a nightmare if we had like 6 feminine signs in a row and then the 6 masculine signs or something like that.
Yeah, that would be a nightmare.
Yeah, right. It'd be too much.
Or like 4 air signs, or not 4, listen to me. I'm making up an air sign over here, or 4 earth signs. No, but it really would be a crazy off balance. So it's good that it goes through the zodiac and that they switch every, yeah, that's a good point too, because Gemini does stir things up a bit. Gemini is not afraid to continue some pattern of movement in some way, not in the same way that Aries is, when planets are in Aries, that fast movement's a little brash. Gemini, I think, does it for more of a curious reason, a reason to learn to figure things out. It's like that. It's when you think about to carry off what you were saying, when you think about Aries, it's like the newborn child just doing whatever it's doing. And then Taurus is like, oh, the child found its feet. Oh, I can move my body, and then maybe Gemini ends up being like the toddler or the 2-year-old, like really great, but also a 2-year-old getting into everything, so it's like that. But the curiosity is there. It's like, what I'm discovering that the physical body. And so there's this continuation through the zodiac like that, if you don't know it already. But yeah, and the thing about Gemini is that it's not afraid to, like figure things out. It's not as brash, I think, as Aries can be, but it definitely has a curiosity to it, and there's not like a lot of fear surrounding that generally. Yeah. So when were you going to say something?
Gemini likes to expand upon the things that were solidified during Taurus season.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
So like Taurus grounds the things that that
Aries started.
Yeah, and then Taurus solidifies those, and then Gemini can expand and bring new stuff into the foundation that was created during Taurus season.
Yeah. So on the 23rd is a busy day. So 23rd, mark your calendars, a busy day. I'll just mention them. We can talk about them all together. The first thing that goes on is we have Venus in Taurus making a sextile to Neptune early in the morning, 6:50 a.m. Then we have the full moon in Sagittarius. So that is at 9:53 a.m. So just a few hours later. Then we have Venus moving into the sign of Gemini, which is in the afternoon at 4:30 p.m., and Jupiter sextile Neptune at 5:44 p.m., and that's in Taurus and Pisces. So Jupiter Taurus, Neptune Pisces. So that's a full day for us. Plan something that you want to bring to the table to work through. I think that will give you, there might be some energy towards making something happen for yourself, something that you're creative about. I don't think you should try to plan something that you want to work on, like a big spreadsheet or something like that. I think it should be more a creative thing. We have Venus, Neptune, Jupiter, even the full moon. So it might even be something that you've worked on for some time, but think about the full moon being the pinnacle of a creative project or of sorts, it doesn't have to be a huge thing, but it could be something that you're working on with yourself throughout the month, and using the 23rd to be a day that you can immerse yourself in that. What are you feeling about these aspects on the 23rd mark?
Yeah. So to me, like I find a quick drop off of energy after the full, like right after the full moon. So, and two, it like right after the full moon, like Venus is still at 29 Taurus at that point. So to me, that's kind of a, and the sun is still trying to Pluto, and the sun has just entered Gemini. So there's a whole lot of energy, leading up to that full moon with Gemini Sag opposition. But to me, then the energy quickly drops off after the full moon. You got Venus at 29 Taurus and Neptune at 29 Pisces. But then I think in the afternoon, so there's kind of a lag between 9:53 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. And then at 4:30 p.m., I think the energy picks back up, not to what it was leading up to the full moon, but I think the energy picks up because that, I think everyone's exhausted after the full moon at 9:53 a.m. And then when Venus enters Gemini later that afternoon, I think there's after the recovery period, I think people are feeling, upright a little bit again.
What is there any practice or anything that you do during a full moon that, anything that you really try to, do on a regular basis to punctuate the full moon? Or do you go by specific full moons that might be just aspecting your own chart?
I kind of, so like that, yeah. So like this full moon, the Gemini Sag one doesn't really hit that hard in my chart. I think I get a trine and a sextile or something. So the big ones that hit hard in my chart, I mean, I definitely try to, get rid of something that needs gotten rid of, or, whatever, cast off some demons or something, whatever kind of weird shit I'm into at that point. But yeah, it kind of depends on like the April full moon. The Taurus Scorpio one always hits a lot harder in my chart than the Gemini Sag one, and so I think it kind of just depends on which ones hit in your chart more.
Right.
To me, that's Gemini Sag, full moon. To me, that's like more like about mental processes. I just kind of try to like figure out like where my thinking is wrong on things, and kind of mentally make sure I'm on the right path on things. But I don't have like any kind of ritual or anything really that I do. But I do. I mean, I pay attention to where the the full moons are.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And that's the same with me. Usually the Taurus Scorpio one is more intense for me. I have planets and my ascendant and and descendant in Taurus Scorpio. So usually that's the case. It depends on what degree they are in, of course. But yeah, and I mean the Jupiter sextile Neptune too, it kind of just brings home what we talked about um, prior with Neptune, amplifying the Neptune energy right at that 29 Pisces. And Jupiter might give an energy to uh, amplifying that a little bit more too. So the end of the day on the 23rd might be a little bit. It might be a little bit easier, I think, flow a little bit easier because of the Jupiter sextile Neptune at the end of the day. Maybe just keep yourself directed at something that maybe doesn't require too much analytical thinking, because I don't think that's necessarily going to be the easiest to do, thinking from a linear perspective, but a more creative perspective, allowing yourself to flow. It might be a better day for that.
Yeah. And in Jupiter sextile Neptune is, to me, that's, philosophical and spiritual pursuits. Because Jupiter's a big picture planet, Neptune's a spiritual planet. So I'm like, with that aspect, I'm going to feel the best, working on astrology stuff or something like that, where it's
Yeah.
figuring out where my big picture stuff, ideas fit in with like the spiritual stuff.
Yeah. That's a good point with that. And then we have on the 25th, so we have a couple things going on the 25th. Jupiter makes a trine to Pluto, and that's at 2 Aquarius. So Jupiter, sorry, not Jupiter. I meant to say Venus trines Pluto on the 25th, and that's at 2 Gemini and Aquarius. So Venus is moving along, and Jupiter moves into Gemini. So that's funny that one is at Venus trine Pluto's at 7:16 a.m. and Jupiter enters Gemini at 7:15 a.m. or p.m. So almost 12 hours later. So what's going on with Venus trine Pluto?
Yeah. So Venus trine Pluto is harmonious transformation. To me, is how I'd read that. So Gemini and Aquarius, that's going to be, mental processes, mental things. Pluto's transformation. So to me, that's where I'm going to want to, dig into whatever research I'm working on at that time or whatnot. Is probably, although that's 7:16. That's 7:16 in the morning. What day of the week is that?
The 25th. Yeah, Saturday.
That's a
Maybe
Saturday.
not.
Okay, so yeah. Yeah. So to me, that's a, you're probably up and moving at a good pace.
Earlier.
Is probably how that's going to read.
Yeah, I like what you said about it, about transformation, though. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And then, so then in the evening is the Jupiter. So like almost exactly 12 hours later to the minute, almost 1 minute short of exactly 12 hours later, is the Jupiter entering Gemini. And that's kind of, this is not going to apply to some people, but the cicada apocalypse is a real thing. I know there's supposed to be 2 broods of cicadas that come out this year. A few years ago, there was 1 brood of cicadas that came out, and like every time I'd go outside and walk the dog, like I'd be getting hit in the face. Like, there was a lot of, if you live in the city, you're probably barely going to notice this. You're probably going to think this is an overblown, kooky thing. But I assure you, if you live in a country where any of these broods have populated, this is a real thing, and I'm a little mildly nervous about it because I don't know that we've had. It's 1803, I think I saw, was the last time when two broods of cicadas came out at the same time.
Wow.
So I'm leery about how this is going to turn out, because the one like 3 years ago that happened, it was more cicadas than I had ever seen in my life. And if this is double that, there's going to be issues.
Wow. Wow. So how do they know that two broods are going to come out? Like, I guess it's just a birthing at the same time. Is that what cicadas do? Because I live in Oakland City.
I've tried to wrap my head around it, and I can't really figure out how they know which. I guess cicadas go into hiding for 17 years, I guess.
Oh.
And so I don't know if they do. I mean, because to me, like, it seems like I see a few cicadas every year, or almost every year anyways. But I guess you can I'm not a cicada expert, I guess. But I don't care to be one. I guess it's not one of my life goals. So I would guess that they do DNA samples on the ones that they come out, and I guess through DNA they can put it into this just sounds like babbling nonsense of a madman at this point. I guess they can put it into their cicada database, and I don't know.
Cicada database. Who is in charge of that? I need to know this.
I don't know. But the reason I even brought this up, and I'm regretting bringing it up now, is my prediction for the cicada apocalypse is probably around May 25th or 26th, is my guess, is to when it's full, is in full bloom, because Gemini rules winged, birds, winged insects. That's all Gemini ruled. So my guess that Jupiter entering Gemini is going to signal the start. Oh, God, I'm sorry that I even started this. I guess that's going to be the beginning of the cicada apocalypse.
That's hysterical. My gosh.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I was so where I live, I don't know. I mean, I knew of cicadas, okay, but where I live now, it's so suburb. We don't have that experience, right? I went up to Gainesville in August last year. I think it was August. Yeah, August and middle of August, and we went for a walk, and I was like, what is that sound? It's so loud. And the women I was with were like, oh, there's cicadas. And I'm like, what the heck are cicadas? Like, I knew they're bugs, but we don't have that. But it was just like, and they go in this up and down, like they're singing in a song. It's really weird. But where I live, it's because it's so, I know I'm in the South, but because it's so built up, we don't have that same thing here. But Gainesville was really interesting, but I couldn't believe how loud it was. It was like unreal how loud it is.
Yeah, it was deafening here a couple years ago. So if we get twice as many, I don't know.
Yeah.
Are we supposed to sing back to the cicadas? Is this like the moth?
What is the song?
I don't know, but it should be stopped. Remember the two little girls that would sing to Mothra to bring Mothra back to life? That's what I'm visualizing.
That's so funny.
That's sort of a reference. I used to call them the Mothra twins. I don't know what their names really were.
That's hysterical.
I don't even know what I'm talking about at this point.
It's cicadas. They've taken your brain.
The cicadas ate into his brain.
Oh my gosh. That sounds painful. Yeah. Wow. So someone in the chat is saying they're like male crickets, only males make the sound. I didn't know that. And in the chat, I had no idea. So we're getting an education here too. So that's interesting.
I need an education at this point.
Cicada education. Thank you.
It's a cicada intervention.
It's for the apocalypse for the cicadas. Am I saying that right? Or, God, now I can. Now it happened to me. Thank you, Mark. All right.
You should totally make the glyph for the show as a cicada.
Now I need. Yes, I was gonna say now I need like a 1 moment, please. My brain needs to get back in my head. It's funny. Oh my gosh. Okay, so on the 27th, we're moving on. Mercury makes a sextile to Saturn. Maybe that will clean up the cicada problem. And this is 18 Taurus Pisces. So what do you think about Mercury sextile Saturn?
So
methodical communication, less cicada.
You'll be communicating with lots of cicadas, yes. So Mercury is your mental processes, and Saturn is structures. So to me, Mercury sextile Saturn is you're able to function mentally at a high rate, and you're able to figure out problems easily, put things in order, organize, make lists of the lists you have, and lists of the lists of the lists you have, and make lists of cicadas.
Make your lists of the cicadas.
Make your lists of cicadas.
Alphabetize them.
And put them in the cicada database so you can find out which brood is hatching.
I can't. Cicada database. I'm sorry. It's so funny.
Oh my God.
Oh Lord. That is so funny. Oh my gosh. Okay. So moving on to the 29th, we have Mars making a conjunction to Chiron, and that happens at 22 Aries. So we're getting that late Aries energy, Mars and Chiron. What are you feeling about Mars and Chiron here?
Yeah. So again, so Mars in Aries is going to spur, initiation or whatnot. So Mars conjunct Chiron is going to spark things that, hopefully help you heal old patterns that are no longer useful.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. And I was talking to Christopher Pridham about it when we recorded our podcast for this week, which will come out next week. But we were talking about Chiron and how Chiron has the wounded healer energy to it. But in the wound, when it's healed, when it becomes whole, there is a charisma, that like a gift, if you will, that comes from that wound. So Mars making that conjunction to Chiron maybe will help to facilitate that a little bit for you. Yeah. I can't even look at the chat without thinking about cicadas now. I'm going to be looking towards this Jupiter entering in a Gemini on the 25th to see. I have to message you and find out how they're doing.
Oh, I will totally do. If the cicada apocalypse is real, I will definitely do a live stream of me walking through hundreds of cicadas kamikazing themselves into my forehead.
That's wonderful. Kamikazing themselves. That's funny. Oh my gosh, that's hysterical.
Oh gosh.
So that's Mars and Chiron. And then on the last day of May, we have Mercury conjunct Uranus. That's at 24 Taurus. This 23, 24 Taurus, 22, 23, 24 Taurus is really highlighted this month. And so Mercury conjunct Uranus. What are you thinking about that one?
Yeah, so the Mercury conjunct Uranus is, similar to the Mercury Pluto aspects. It's like that's so Mercury is the lower octave of Uranus. So whereas Mercury is kind of the mental processes, Uranus is kind of the collective unconscious, to where we can tap into the 100th monkey thing, where we're able to tap into the collective unconscious. So to me, that Mercury conjunct Uranus, again, obviously, surprise of shocking events, obviously, because it's a conjunction to Uranus, but also it can be tapping into our subconscious and stuff, and the collective unconscious to figure things out. Also, like Mercury conjunct Uranus is like sudden. Do you have a problem stuck in your head for like months and you can't figure it out, and then it's like suddenly, like, you wake up and you get it?
Yeah.
Like to me, that's a Mercury Uranus conjunction. It's like you finally figure something out that's been like stuck in your brain for months.
Yeah, like the solution arises just suddenly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and the idea with that is make sure you write it down or give yourself a note, because it might not stick if you don't. Like, if you get the inspiration, you're like in the shower, when you get out, make a note of it or something so you remember. But yeah, it could be a fleeting situation. But yeah, I think Uranus does bring those sometimes to inspirational thought processes when it's conjunct with Mercury. Yeah.
Write it on a cicada that's flying by.
Just bring it over right on its wing. How big are they? They're like small, couple inches?
No, they get good size. They're they can be like 4 or 5 inches. We had God, I don't know what to tell you they look like. I mean, they're pretty good size. Like, a lot of years we'll just find, I don't know, why am I back in the cicada rabbit hole? I probably started.
I did it.
Like they'll shed like a snake. They'll leave their husks like you'll find them on the ground and on trees and stuff, and you'll think, oh, look at the big bug, but it's just like it's their hollow cicada husk.
I actually remember, now that you're saying that, I remember that in Michigan when I was little, my grandparents, we'd find I think they're cicadas, I don't know, but you see the bug and it was not there. It was just like the shell, the exoskeleton or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exoskeleton. That's the correct phrase.
Wow. So aside from the cicada apocalypse, let's wrap up May with a pretty bow. And put a cicada on top of it.
Put a cicada on top of it. Yeah. One other thing that I wanted to mention was that, two other things that I wanted to mention is that Neptune will be at 29 Pisces from May 3rd up until it's early September, after it's retrograded, that it's back out of the 29th degree of Pisces. And also, a second thing I forgot to mention is once we get into May 20th, when the sun enters Gemini, that tight stellium of all the planets in Pisces, mid Pisces through mid late Taurus, that we've had for a good portion of the year, really, up to that point, pretty much for most of the year up to that point, that'll start loosening up, Because I think that lineup really kind of started. It was a little bit bigger, but earlier in the year when the inner planets were in like Aquarius, everything was from like 0 Aquarius through mid Taurus. And it's just kind of adjusted a little bit. Once we get into, the sun enters Gemini, and then the other inner planet, Venus entering Gemini and Mercury, that'll start, that really tight stellium will start breaking up a little bit. So at least in theory, some of the intensity level maybe should break up a little bit because there's not so many planets just crammed into 70, 80 degrees of the zodiac. So hopefully it at least feels a little bit less compacted by the time we get to late May.
Yeah, but then in June, I mean, I'm just looking ahead, but then in June, it just a lot of, well, the inner planets at least shift, and Jupiter shift into Gemini, but we'll save that for the June video.
Yeah.
But yeah, then we have Gemini energy, but Gemini is a little easier to handle than maybe the other two on some level. And that's all making that sesquiquadrate to is sesquiquadrate or no square to
the Pisces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was. Oh, it is a sesquiquadrate. My mistake to the Pluto. When they get a little into June, they make the sesquiquadrate to the Pluto in Aquarius. So yeah, and the square to Saturn as well. So there's a lot of fun.
Neptune and yeah.
It's a lot of fun coming up. That's June though. So let's deal with the circadas and how long do they go on for? Like for the whole summer?
I think we get, I'd say there's probably 3 months of it. I don't think it stays heavy the entire 3-4 months, but it's more than a few weeks.
Wow.
So
if you were gonna say one kind of like overall for the month of May, what would you say is a highlight or like an overall shifting of the energies in May?
So I think the biggest part is that where that Venus, Uranus, Sun, Jupiter, stellium in Taurus, know where 20 to 28 Taurus is in your chart, and that's probably going to be the highlight because the Pisces and Aries planets are kind of there's not as many things going to be in those, and once we get into the deeper into Taurus season, that Taurus stellium is really going to be, I think, the big deal.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, this was fun and very enlightening. I learned so much about circadas. Maybe we'll have to figure out a time when we can do a live and talk about what you were mentioning in the beginning of the video.
Oh, yeah, like mediations for having to do things with difficult outer planet lineups.
Yeah, I think that would be a good video to do. That would be fun. So we'll try to figure that out this week or this month ahead of us. And yeah, so it was great. It was great talking with you. And I guess we can end the stream unless you have something else to share.
No, I'm all cicadaed out.
All right, you guys have a wonderful one, and we'll see you next month.
Okay. Thanks for watching.